Hello, this is Dustin with Dustin's Dollars. Back again today. I'm going to be talking about Knightscope. Knightscope hit a new all-time low, I think you call it that, at least as a publicly traded company. All-time low share price yesterday at about $5.35. What's going on? Today I'm going to talk about that, give you my best interpretation on what could be what is the current state of things as I see it. Spoiler alert, nobody can actually really explain why prices are what they are. But I will give you as much information as I know about the stock and about the company, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Real quick, before I get into the meat of the video, let me remind you that I am not a financial advisor or a financial professional of any sort. All opinions that I express in this video are mine and do not represent those of any company or any other individual. I do have a long position in Knightscope. I hold Series S preferred shares. So basically this video should be for your entertainment purposes only, because I could be wrong about everything that I say in this video, and you need to do your own research before making any investment decisions. And so this is our 5-day chart. Look at the 1-day chart. We were at 5% today. Again, not really that meaningful in the context of here's the last month, and then here is the full tenure of Knightscope as a publicly traded company. And other than this initial spike up in those first couple of days, which I think I talked about in the past, it's sort of been a march downwards. We've had one or two spikes up as there was some interesting news, either macro news or news about the company. But for the most part, in the past almost month, at least 3 weeks or so, it's been sort of just a slow downward trend. So what is going on here? And first of all, I'm gonna repeat what I kind of said in the initial intro, is nobody can really explain why a stock price is what it is, right? It is supply and demand. And when we're looking at this, we're really only even looking at the most recent trade. But there are people, people are responding to this. I'm even getting comments, hey, time to sell Knightscope. This was yesterday, right? The 16 hours ago. It was just on yesterday's video. That wasn't even about Knightscope. I'm just, people know me for talking about Knightscope, so I get comments like that. So I want to talk about a couple things that it probably, isn't, or at least aren't big factors here. I don't even have it up here, but one of them, I could bring it up. Just the only place I would look is the SEC filings. But this is about, I've seen some people saying, hey, insiders are selling. It's a pump and dump. Insiders are dumping their shares now. And, I have an entire video about this. TLDR is that insiders have a lockup. They're not selling. If they were selling, they'd be filing, Form 4s, unless they're doing this, illegally and not even reporting it to SEC, which I can't imagine anyone would be attempting to do that, right? So just right off the bat, this is not insiders selling, crashing the stock price. That's maybe that will be the case in another 5 months or so when their lockup ends, but that's not the case today. Another theory, I guess you would call it, that you see in various places on the internet, and I mentioned this before, is it's the shorts. People are short selling the stock, the naked shorts, whatever. There is publicly reported short interest. We have the most recent short interest filing just got updated today. So we have the data as of the end of February. So that's like a week and a half ago or so. There were 205,000 roughly shares short. And with their number, this is on marketwatch.com, with their reported number here, they say that there are 17.5 million shares outstanding. I have an entire video going over how many shares there actually are, which I think it is more than that. It's more in the 50 million share range. 56 million I think was the number I came up with. Sorry, I don't have off the top of my head, but it is more than 17.5 million. But the amount of shares that are actually available to trade is much lower than that 50 something million, and we can't really say for sure how many there are, but let's just use their number as rough proxy for how many shares might be tradable. How many of the class A's there are that are tradable, and if that's roughly the range, then this 200,000 short shares, that's 1% of the outstanding shares. And if you look at the daily volume, the average volume per Yahoo Finance is about 10 million shares, right? So that is also what's that, 2% of the daily volume in open short interest. I'm not saying that that didn't contribute to the price action. Of course, increasing short interests would actually depress the stock price, but it's hard for me. Again, this is outside of my direct expertise, but it's hard for me to really think that that's a large enough number to make a material difference here, right? To actually account for the fact that from, let's say, after that spike and things were back down around the IPO price or the listing price of around $10, that would actually account for almost a 50% drop there. Seems unlikely to me. Not impossible, but seems unlikely, especially given the volume that we see. And again, as I've mentioned this before, the borrower rate, if you want to short the stock, is quite high. It has not dropped below what's the lowest rate it got to was 58% of, I think that's an annualized fee that ends up being paid daily. But I mean, it's been pretty high, and even as at the end of February, you can see the fee had not dropped below 100%. So that's pretty crazy, and so I don't think that this is due to shorts. And we can at least also see the publicly reported failures to deliver. If you're not familiar with this is sort of goes into the plumbing of the actual financial system. At least as far as I understand it, I am most certainly not an expert in this, but the way that I understand it is, we have these underlying, when you make a trade, the shares aren't exactly handed over immediately at the time. It looks to you like it is if you're buying it through your broker or selling it through your broker, but the transaction actually takes, with today's infrastructure, 2 days to be settled and for those shares to actually be accounted for in the new place where they are. Sometimes, that actually leaves open the possibility that 2 days later, those shares actually aren't where they should be. And when that happens, that gets reported as a failure to deliver, right? They actually failed. The person who from the transaction failed to deliver the share that they should have. And this, we can see that there was a spike here right around the time that there was this spike, or at least a day or two afterwards, which is what you'd expect, right? After there was low liquidity, just weren't enough shares to go around. And so, again, I don't exactly know, can't fully explain what happened, but it seems to have dropped off drastically. Doesn't seem to really have spiked up. We have data through the middle of February here. I don't know why this website only shows it February 9th. I think we're supposed to have published data through February 15th. But even still, it looks like it's low. I'd be really surprised if this had any particular impact, right? And this is, again, you just see this in certain parts of the internet where people really blame shorts, and they blame, naked shorting, and that naked shorting would be, you'd have at least some breadcrumbs to see here in terms of how many failures to deliver you would see for the share. So I don't think that is really contributing here. So what is my take? My best explanation for this? I think there's really two things that factor into this pretty heavily. One is, the market, as you've probably heard if you're an investor, people like to say that the market hates uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty with Knightscope, right? The most recent reported numbers that we have are from the middle of last year, right? So there's 9 months of, where we're lacking SEC reported data. For most companies, you don't get more than, I want to say, usually 4.5 months, 5 months, something like that. Usually you get the filing a month and a half, I think it is, after, almost never more than 6 months, right? Sometimes I'll see some of the annual filings for the prior year happen in mid and late March. But with Knightscope, we have, even a longer time frame. We don't have actual insight into the company with SEC reported numbers since the end of June of 2021, I think it was. And so that's a huge gap, right? We have bits and pieces from some of their filings they've done due to the listing and the fundraising, but we don't have, the gold standard, the actual, 10Ks, 10Qs, or what they did before with the semi-annual reports. We just don't have them. And I think that's a big factor here where, every day the uncertainty does grow. And I think that's one factor to consider. Another factor, and I think this can explain a lot of it, is really the market as a whole. And I am not saying that let me be very clear about what the point that I am trying to make here. I'm not actually even looking at the market as a whole over the past month. I am talking about the market since around November. And this, sorry, I pulled, this is the, the QQQ tracks the large NASDAQ companies. But you can see from around November to now, things are down by, what's that, almost a third. There was around 400, now it's around 330. It actually hit the low of 320 yesterday. The reason why I'm looking at this time frame is because that $10 price point that we all have anchored at our minds, right? That was the listing price for Knightscope. That was selected in November when the market, if you look here, the market was kind of at a high point. Not kind of. Let's see if it reconnects. I don't think it's reconnecting. It says it's reconnecting. I'm going to keep talking just in case. The point that I'm making here, in case this is still recording. Start recording. All right, hopefully I am live again. We'll see. Hey, somebody joined. Oh, somebody joined and they added in the chat. Hopefully you can read this. Can you add a message in chat if you can still hear me? I dropped somehow. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Rick says, I am still holding. This is a unique company with great products on hand. This is needed in police and security industries. Thanks, Dustin, for keeping update. I will for a while unless I am wrong. So I agree with that. Dang it, I'm not seeing any chat messages here, so I'm thinking I'm probably not connected anymore. Yeah, but I really think that this was just a repricing of the company. I'm going to, if I stop streaming, that's going to end it. I'm just going to keep talking, assuming that I am streaming, and then maybe I'm actually not. So if you look at some other, and I forgive me for picking other companies that, maybe you think are also trash companies. I know some people watch my streams and they don't like Knightscope, which is a little funny to me. But if you look at some of these other companies, you can see from November, this one had a longer downtrend. You can see from November, it dropped from $20 down to $7.80. This is Virgin Galactic. I picked this because it's another stock that is currently unprofitable. If they ever make profits, it's going to happen well into the future. And you really see this because these companies were effectively repriced in terms of how much are investors willing to pay for future earnings. And this is largely a function of expected higher interest rates from the Fed, right? The higher that risk-free rate is when people are doing their discounted cash flow valuations, they are going to pay less for free cash flow that is far into the future. You can look at another one. Here's another company that their profits are going to be well into the future if they ever have profits. And I picked both of these companies also because they have a large retail following. And again, you can make your arguments for each of the companies as to why they might have their specific reasons why they are not good. But you can see even from November, this one's been cut in half. And I think you see similar price action with Knightscope for similar reasons, right? People just are moving away from these companies that don't currently have any earnings or aren't going to have any earnings in the near future. So that is what I think is the absolute largest factor as to why Knightscope has dropped. Does this still show participants? It still shows you there. Still shows Rick there. Hopefully this is still capturing it. But I that's really my assumption, right? I don't think anything fundamentally has gone wrong with the company. In fact, they've announced some new sales. I think they have publicly reported 7 sales in the past 1.5 months that they've been public, which if you annualize that out, it's slightly less than 1.5 months. So if you annualize that out, it would be about 60 robots per year in terms of sales, and I think that's pretty good considering their last stated number in a PR was like 90 deployed, and their last filed number was like 50 something, right? So they're on pace to sell 100, sell enough to have 100% growth if they didn't have any cancellations. I think they've continued the Robot Roadshow, which is to me seems like a pretty interesting, and hopefully I can see that being a very good marketing tool, right? For people to get to see the robots physically, up close and personal. make it a little more tangible for them. We saw that the hiring, sorry, this is my link for the Robot Roadshow. You can see they're continuing this all the way through March and April, and then you can see they're hiring. I want to have a whole video talking about what they're hiring, but clearly the company is growing. They are the company seems to be firing all cylinders, especially with the cash they just got from their raise and from their listing. So that I don't think anything fundamentally has changed with the company. I really just think it's again, companies across the board being repriced in terms of multiples and uncertainty, and that's really contributing to the price action that we see. So hopefully you enjoy the video. Hopefully this is actually still recording, and thank you for watching.